everybody, Bernardo here, and today I'm going to do a review of my first radio controlled airplane that I got a few months ago. It's the Skyranger Ready to Fly Electric RC Trainer from Cox Models. And I just want to give a few observations. I obviously don't have a lot of experience with other planes to compare this with, but I do have a beginner's perspective, and for a lot of you that are just getting started, that perspective might be useful. The first thing is that it is considered ready to fly. There is a little bit of assembly. You have to put the wing on, there's one screw there, you have to put the propeller on, put the battery in, put the landing gear on if you want to use the landing gear. But all that really takes a minute or two. I mean, you can put that together very quickly and be out and ready to fly very quickly. As far as flying the plane, I found it to be a pretty good plane for a beginner, but there are a few drawbacks. It does fly well, it's pretty stable. It has high wing design, so once you start a turn, it will correct itself and basically fly itself if you just take your hands off the stick. The one thing that makes this plane perhaps a little more difficult than other trainers is that it does need to be under power. If you completely cut the power, it will dive. You won't be able to do a nice glide, so you need to keep the throttle about 30%, somewhere in there, as you come in for a landing. It takes a little practice, but I suggest trying to land it on grass to begin with. The landing gear is optional, so you just leave the landing gear off, you can hand launch it, and then you can just bring it down on the grass, and that's fairly simple for a beginner pilot. As far as durability, I found it to be very durable as far as the airframe construction. It uses what's called flex foam, and this stuff just is very hard to break. I've run it into trees, poles, the ground, all sorts of stuff. I've never messed up any of the foam. However, there's one drawback, and that is if you hit it hard on the nose, you will bend the motor shaft. And when that happens, you can try to bend it back, and you might be successful, or it might break off when you try to bend it back. And that's what happened to me the first time. This is actually the third motor that I put in this plane because of that. The one good point about that is that this particular plane is popular, and there are parts available on the internet. I think a motor goes for somewhere around $12, so it doesn't set you back that much if you need to replace that. If I had it to do over, I might take a look at the Cox Sky Cruiser, and that one has a push prop, and so it would be out of harm's way. You'd have very little chance of breaking the shaft or the propeller, and it also glides a little bit better than this one as well. If you want to know where to purchase those, you can just do a search on the internet, or I have a blog post that's linked to in the description below that I have more information on where to get the Cox models. This plane has a good amount of power. You can launch it at 1/2 or 3/4 throttle, and it takes off and climbs with no trouble. You can also do loops with it from level flight. Just put the throttle all the way up and then hold back the stick, and it comes right around with no trouble. I do find that over time the motor does wear out. In other words, as you use it, you might find that it doesn't have as much power as it used to. Also, if you happen to bend the motor shaft and it's a little wobbly, that will also take away some of the thrust as well. As far as the controls here, it's pretty simple. You have the throttle over here, you have the elevator and the rudder on this side. It's a 3-channel plane, so there's no ailerons. It has digital trim buttons here, so you can adjust that using these buttons here. It has the amount of throttle on the little LCD readout here. This controller also can be switched between high rate and low rate just by pressing on the stick over here. Basically, low rates is what you would use when you're first starting out. It makes the controls less sensitive and a little more forgiving. Once you're used to flying the plane, high rates is typically what you would use, and that gives you a little more control if you want to do loops and other things like that. All things considered, I'm pretty pleased with this plane. If I had to do over, I might consider getting the Cox Sky Cruiser instead, but it's been a pretty good choice. I've had a lot of fun with it, and it sells for about $100 online, and so it's not an expensive plane. As always, thanks for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.